People in every major city around the world are marching against Israel's genocide this Saturday in honor of Land Day, one of the most important days in the history of the Palestinian struggle. It's commemorated in Palestine every year and was the inspiration behind the 2018 Great March of Return, when Palestinians in Gaza peacefully marched to the border fence with Israel and protested the occupation for well over a year. So where does Land Day come from? First, we need to start with some basic history. The whole concept behind Israel as a country was that it was meant to be a Jewish-only ethno-state in Palestine. The obvious problem with this was that Palestine was always 100% Arab. The only way to create a Jewish majority in Palestine was to expel the indigenous Arab population and take their land. And that's exactly what happened. Israel was quite literally founded through a series of massacres that wiped out entire Palestinian villages, known today as the Nakba, Arabic for the catastrophe. The Palestinians, however, refused to leave, and since Israel's founding in 1948, the fundamental question before the self-proclaimed Jewish state has always boiled down to how Israel can expel the remaining Palestinians if they refuse to leave. Palestinians continued to live in historic Palestine, including within Israel's borders, which made them citizens of Israel. On March 11, 1976, Israel declared that it would be annexing a large tract of Palestinian land in the Galilee, the northernmost part of Israel, where there's a strong Arab majority. Israeli officials stated that the goal behind the operation was to Judaize the Galilee. In response, Palestinian groups called for protests and general strikes. The Israelis declared a curfew on March 29th to try to stop these demonstrations from happening, but it didn't work. And the next day, the demonstrations went forward anyway. Israel deployed thousands of police officers and soldiers who raided Palestinian villages, arresting activists and political leaders. They also fired live ammunition at demonstrators, killing 6 Palestinians and injuring and arresting hundreds. March 30th, 1976 came to be known as Land Day, and since then, Palestinians have commemorated Land Day by protesting and continuing to raise the centrality of land to the Palestinian cause. But Land Day also serves as a reminder that Israel will never escape the resistance of the Palestinian people, not even within its own borders. Israel constantly tries to present itself as a highly tolerant, democratic state that treats all of their citizens equally, regardless of if they're Arab or Jewish. But at the same time, Israel enforces a two-tiered legal regime against its Palestinian citizens and ultimately aims to expel all Arabs from historic Palestine. Not only will Israel never reconcile these two contradictory instincts, but it'll also never see peace until it realizes that these two things can't both hold true at the same time. Famed Israeli historian Benny Morris admits this, saying, quote, "The Israeli Arabs are a time bomb. Their slide into complete Palestinization has made them an emissary of the enemy that's among us. They're a potential fifth column. In both demographic and security terms, they're liable to undermine the state so that if Israel again finds itself in a situation of existential threat, as in 1948, it may be forced to act as it did then." Morris is right about one thing. Palestinian citizens of Israel aren't, nor have they ever been, loyal to Israel. They do, in a sense, constitute a threat, but not because they slid into Palestinization. They were never not Palestinian, and no one was more adamant about that than Israel itself, who always insisted that Palestinians could never be equal to Jews. And while Zionists claim to have a special connection to Palestinian land, in the last few months, all we've seen them do is defile it and talk about how they're going to use it for real estate speculation. For Palestinians, the connection to the land isn't theoretical or commercial. Being Palestinian means you come from Palestine, you lived in Palestine, or your ancestors lived in Palestine for centuries and centuries. If you look at the newspaper clippings from the years following Israel's attempted Judaization of the Galilee, you see how obsessed Israel was with the demographic balance of the area. Zionist newspapers constantly list out how many Jews there were compared to Arabs, the need to settle more Jews, and so on. But the idea that having more Jews in Palestine somehow replaces the centuries of culture that Palestinians have developed from living on the land was always exactly the problem. Israel actually achieved a demographic majority in the Galilee in 1992, but has never been able to maintain it. Since October 7th, settlers in the north have left the Galilee in droves out of fear for their lives. Compare this to the Palestinians who refuse to leave their land even after enduring the worst circumstances imaginable. And decide for yourself whose land it really is.